Hi, this is Joel Lindstrom. This is our final episode of interviews from the 2018 Microsoft Business Applications Summit. I'm especially excited about this episode because we interviewed Shilpa Sinha and Srihari Srinivasa from Microsoft. Both of them work with the unified interface, and Srihari is in charge of the Outlook integration. We had a good conversation and learned a lot. I learned several things from the conversation. This was at the end of the Business Applications Summit while they were starting to tear down and when people were coming out, final keynote. And so as a result, the sound quality gets a little bit rough in some places. We did the best we could on it, but I think it kind of gives you a taste of what it's like to be at the summit, hearing the background noises. But towards the end of the episode, they do start tearing tables down, and at one point a forklift drives by. So just be prepared, especially if you're listening on headphones. You might want later on in the episode, listen through your speakers and not through your headphones, especially if you have the volume up high. I should mention this episode is brought to you by Ingenius. Ingenius Connector Enterprise integrates your telephone system into Microsoft Dynamics 365 and CRM for increased phone agent productivity. Features like screen pop, click to dial, and call logging enable efficient customer service and a comprehensive view of calendar interactions. One piece that I wish I had asked Srihari about was I learned from the release notes after I had recorded this episode that the Outlook app is going to be getting the ability to do delegate tracking. Besides the category-based tracking that we talked about, you'll now be able to use the Outlook app to track and set regarding on shared calendars. So that's something I'm really excited about, and a lot of our customers are as well. So again, enjoy this episode. Enjoy. This is CRM Audio, the Microsoft Business Applications Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Dynamics 365 User Group. The User Group for Dynamics 365 and CRM community is powered by users, for users, and specializes in the delivery of member-driven education, networking, and events to help you maximize your current Microsoft Dynamics investment. And going on right now is the Dynamics 365 User Group Virtual Service Summer Camp. You still got a day or two of content, so check that out if you aren't already. We thank Dynamics 365 User Group for sponsoring CRM Audio, the Microsoft Business Applications Podcast. So, welcome back to CRM Audio. We have more exciting guests with us. Joining us now is Shilpa Sinha from Microsoft and Srihari Srinivasa from Microsoft.
Thank you. Great
Thanks.
to be here.
Yeah, and we're here again at the Business Applications Summit. Lots of exciting new stuff we've talked about. So, Shilpa, we've wanted to get you on for several months because you are over the Unified Client Interface.
Unified interface.
Okay, that's my first question.
No
How
more
do you say
UCI.
it?
That's right.
Unified Interface.
Unified Interface.
Okay.
So UCI is an internal name.
Okay.
Externally, we call it Unified Interface.
Okay. So, Unified Interface, user interface is the UI?
This is the UI for the new UI. That is correct.
UI squared. I like it. So, we've heard a lot, and you had a session. I didn't get to see it in person because they shut the door and didn't let me in.
That's
but
right.
Scott
It was a full
there,
session,
and
yes. That's what I hear.
I watched some of the video.
I told them to shut the door on you.
Good.
So what we learned is that a lot of the gaps, things like advanced find, merge, bulk edit, are coming very, very soon.
Yes, I talked about that yesterday, that we are going to have those experiences surface from within Unified Interface, but this is going to be a hybrid experience. So Let me explain what hybrid experience is.
Okay.
So basically from within the Unified Interface experience, you will have advanced find, merging of records, bulk edit, personal options, as well as, what was the other one? Sharing. Yeah.
Oh, that's right, sharing. Yeah.
Yes,
I remember
sharing.
that. I took notes on that.
These 5 experiences will immediately, in maybe a month or so, will start surfacing from within the Unified Interface experience. Users can access it. However, it will launch the web client experience,
Nice. Okay.
which is our classic experience.
Right.
However, we have ensured that the experience is contained within unified interface and trying to avoid all leaky points for the users to be able to navigate into classic experience.
So what does that mean for some of the admin type features? Some of the things like configuration and solutions that aren't currently in unified interface.
So
are people going to be configuring in the unified interface in the fall, or is that still going to take a little bit longer?
So they would still be using the classic experience to do the admin experiences. So we will have an interface to get into the classic experience. So that's not going away.
Okay.
It is there. Classic experience is still there. There might be certain scenarios where you can just work with unified interface as a runtime experience, but there might be certain scenarios where you need an ISV solution which has dependencies on classic experiences for which you may need the classic experience to have a side-by-side existence. But even whether you are in runtime for unified interface, there might be certain scenarios like creating of territories, queue management, etc., for which you have to go back to the classic.
So Shilpa, what's the side-by-side experience?
Okay, so we just talked about hybrid.
Yes.
Now, side-by-side is again an internal term that we use to define the state of our application the way it is today.
Okay.
So today when you go and provision an instance, for example, you will have a complete access to the classic experience.
Right.
Plus you may have out-of-box unified interface app modules like your Sales Hub, Customer Service Hub, etc.
Okay.
Right? So the coexistence of both of them for the end user to have that visible and be able to move to a full-fledged classic experience and an UCI experience is what we are calling side-by-side.
Okay.
Okay.
Hybrid on the other side, like I talked about, is totally a completely different experience, which is from within UCI, the delta of those 5 commands that we talked about, you can still have access to it and it will contain that experience though it's in a hybrid way. So
okay. So is the hybrid going to be something people have to enable? Is that going to start happening by default? How is that going
so
to be
when we launch this, it will be enabled by default and people can opt out of it. So
Okay.
it will be an admin setting at the org level and they can go to the system settings, under settings, and be able to change that.
So
and that's across all roles. It's not a role-based requirement.
That is correct. It's across all roles, but admins are the only ones who will have access to the settings change.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so some of the dialogues don't work in mobile right now. Like if you try to pull up Advanced Find in Safari on your iPad, you can pull it up, but it doesn't look and work. It doesn't work. So are you going to be for those types of hybrid dialogues that don't render in mobile? Are you going to be by client disabling those, or are we going to make any changes so that they work in mobile?
So hybrid experiences will not be available on shims, if that makes sense. So on the apps, we are going to just suppress it. It'll be only a browser-specific experience.
Okay, and that makes sense. So where we are with the hybrid option being available, what is your guidance? I put two categories. Somebody's rolling out Dynamics now versus somebody who's live with 1,000 users. So start with the people who are new. Is Microsoft saying they should go forward on UCI? We'll sort of
Unified interface, not UCI.
And UI.
Thank you.
Will we? Now that we're at
Says
parity,
that they need to beat 'em.
are you advising that new deployments should all be UCI?
Okay, so now
UI.
are we talking...
Let me ask it again.
Stop using acronyms. It's just unified interface.
Now that we have parity between unified interface and web experiences, are you recommending that new deployments roll forward on unified interface?
Okay, so I'm not very clear about the question. You started talking about hybrid,
Right.
and now you're talking about side-by-side. These are two different concepts.
Okay.
So unified interface by default is something we should talk separately about.
Okay.
Hybrid is a totally different concept.
Okay.
So, I'll repeat that again. Hybrid, you have certain, especially the ones I mentioned, 5 of them, those experiences surfacing on unified interface runtime.
Right.
When you click on it, a user who doesn't know what web client looks like or
Right.
what classic looks like, they wouldn't know what's happening.
Right.
It is from within that experience that they see this, they do the work and come back to unified interface. This is a totally different concept. Now let's put that aside. Now to your other question about what would I recommend new customers do?
Yeah.
Okay, so the focus is to move all our customers towards unified interface, right?
Right.
There are known gaps that we have. We keep updating the blog. We do have a lot of communication around conferences, etc., where during the session I listed out everything with what the roadmap is. So there are 2 click stops. So one is post our, let's say next month, we will be pushing out hybrid,
Okay.
which will enable new customers to get those 5 core capabilities that everybody has been complaining about, because that is sort of a fundamental capability of being able to
Right.
share records, edit records, etc. Right?
Right.
They will be available from within UCI. Outside of that, unified interface.
She
Let
did
me
it too.
correct
I
myself.
I was being polite.
So from within unified interface, they will be able to access those. Once they have that, we feel with all the other capabilities that we've brought onto unified interface, and with evidence many customers are already going live only on unified interface, we feel new customers who are not upgrading or moving from a classic experience to 9.0 UCI will be able to configure their workloads completely on unified interface. Did I use UCI again? So, unified interface.
So now let's talk about existing clients. You're an administrator for a deployment of Dynamics that's on the traditional UI, and you've got 1,000 users. They're happy. They're doing things. You've got things that are high priority. We want to bring these other business processes in. What would your guidance to them? Because typically they're not going to want to rock the boat if things are going to go well unless they have to, or unless there's a significant reason to make a switch. If it's going away, if it's being deprecated, which, it's not being deprecated.
Don't use the D word.
But so what would you advise? What would you advise them? How should they prioritize moving to unified interface?
So are you saying this customer with 1,000 users is on 8.2 or 9.0?
They're on 9.0. They just updated, which everybody online will be updated
Perfect.
by the beginning of the next year.
So they were already 8.2 customers.
Yes.
They updated to 9.0.
Yes.
By default, they are on classic experience.
Right.
Right? Depends in this case, right? I would encourage them to try unified interface, chunk out what their user base is like. How are their users using the current Dynamics 365 experience on Classic? If they can segregate roles very clearly and workloads, try and get those workloads which have that completeness on unified interface and try this cool experience out. There are so many benefits to it. It's completely accessible, completely metadata driven, it looks beautiful, it's faster. There's so much going on for it, so why not try it out?
Right. One of the things I'm finding with customers is when you go to the hub concept and you say, okay, we can make it whatever you want, that it's like the reverse of what we used to say when you'd implement Dynamics just in general. What do you mean? I want everything. In this case, they're like, oh, well, I don't want everything. I don't need everything. But then it's like that paralysis of what if I take that out? Ooh, I might miss it. It's really cool how you can limit the views, you can limit, what objects, you can limit the navigation, you have its own sitemap. I love the hub concept. So I love how that's going forward. Do you foresee us having an admin hub at some point?
That's a trick question. Well, I'm not the right person to answer that question. That's one thing. There are some investments going on the admin side of the experiences, which is not fleshed out a lot yet. That's why today, when you see admin experiences are still on the classic experience,
right?
And people go there. There are certain conversations going on about maybe packaging the admin experience in a web type app module and making it available, especially in the side-by-side off mode or the UCI by default mode that I've been talking about. But we are still ironing out the details.
Okay.
Outside of that, there is something called an admin center which is coming into being. I'm not the right person to talk about. I'm hoping you will one day get James Olenek here and talk about it.
We're talking to James, and we will do that.
One thing I found to approach somebody who's using classic UI and start the conversation about unified interface, you've got to start from the app designer concept, especially if they have come from dynamic CRM and have everybody swimming in the same big pool.
Right.
And then once you do that and they see the light of, wow, I don't have to, I call it the lowest common denominator experience, where you got the sitemap everybody's fought over and you have things that nobody's really happy about, but you've had a kind of a not so peaceful truce about what comes first, and you sell that concept. Then you can say, okay, we got two choices. We can say classic UI, or should we look at going to the unified interface? And that can be a successful way to do it. And then you might say, we don't want to move everybody over, but we got this smaller group, let's start with, move them over.
It's completely role based. You can add users depending on their workload. So for example, let's say that there is a requirement of you only having your front end salespeople use specific entities and specific workflows, and maybe one form on a specific entity, one dashboard out of your multiple dashboards that you have, one business process out of the multiple business process you have. You can just create one app module of type unified interface and add those, maybe that one dashboard, maybe that one entity with that one form, with that one business process. Add the user security role to it, add all the users to it. They have access to that experience itself. Think about the productivity gain. They don't have the entire kitchen sink to sift through. They have that focused app. They can work through it, and that's so much better.
And I like that concept of being able to start small and not give them the entire kitchen sink, so that they focus and don't get kind of like that squirrel moment. Oh, let me see this shiny object. Oh, let me see that one. It's just that view or two views in that process.
Yes.
Yep.
We make sure that whatever capabilities we are putting out there, we go through an entire certification process and testing process and make that experience accessible. Once it's signed off, then we put it out there. If there are certain known bugs that we are shipping with, there is a tight SLA of 90 days within which we ship. So we are making a lot of weekly releases wherein we are fixing those little inadequacies, if I may use that word, on accessibility that gets fixed. Or the other things that we are doing in our weekly release is fundamentals, which is including performance, stability, reliability, and bug fixes that we constantly push out.
Right, and I think in what this comes down to for me is it makes it so much easier to train users when you've got the same interface across all platforms, all clients. It's no more, well, if you're in mobile, do it this way. If you're in Outlook, do it this way.
Right.
One training, one standard way of doing things is a significantly better experience.
And completely responsive. So when you're showing it to the customers or have the customers try it, if they do not want to take a app and connect to a server, just reflow the browser and they will literally see what they will see on a smaller viewport size, which is on the phone or a tablet. So, yeah.
Right. All right, I have one more question for Shilpa.
Okay.
And this may be difficult, but what is your favorite feature in Unified Interface? What's the favorite thing you've done, like transformative?
Unified Interface itself.
But what? Give me a component, because I have one in my mind. That you can't do in Classic.
Oh my God, there are so many things you can't do in Classic that you can do in Unified Interface.
So what's your favorite?
Oh my God, I love the metadata concept. So basically everything being so component-based.
Right.
And all the cool new controls like the timeline control, reference panel, the interactive dashboard. Oh my God, I can keep going on.
Yep.
I love so many things about Unified Interface. I just want everybody to use it and love it too.
And now I can have the calendar control in the web versus not just the mobile.
Yeah, it's
so
all
nice.
amazing controls.
Yeah.
Power Apps control framework is another amazing thing that we have. And once it is out to public, they can build their own cool controls and experiences on top of Unified Interface. And there you go. It's an endless story.
and before we let her go and release her from our assaulting questions, if people want, if our listeners want to send feedback, give you input on the features and what's coming, how would they best do that?
Perfect. Go to experience.dynamics.com, click on the ideas tile, and look for feedback that you're already thinking about. If it's there, vote for it. We are prioritizing depending on how much of votes an idea is getting. The other thing about if you have direct feedback on Unified Interface per se and you're seeing gaps that I may not have called out in any of my slides that you see or any public communication that you've seen, and you see that is a gap on Unified Interface which was already there, like that capability was there in Web Client, send an email to unifiedfeedback@microsoft.com. This is a DL that can get external emails and it goes directly to me and my team. And that is one way of doing it. And if we feel it's a new feature ask, we'll ask you to go back to ideas.
And we'll put both of those in the show notes.
All right. So
thank you, Shilpa.
Shifting gears to Outlook. Srihari, thank you for being here. And what is your role with the team? And you're over basically all the Outlook experiences, right?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Joel. So I'm a program manager in the User XPM team in Microsoft. And I am the program manager for our Outlook integrations. And that involves the Outlook client, the COM add-in, as well as the app for Outlook. And I also own a part of the Unified Interface platform as well, which is activities and timeline.
Okay. So we've seen quite a lot of Outlook changes, in the past couple of years. I mean, for a while it was a little bit, I don't want to say stale, but not a lot of innovation happening with Outlook. We had the Outlook client, and it was progressively getting farther and farther behind the features you could use. And then the Outlook app coming out initially as the lightweight client, and over quickly becoming very fully featured. Now in version 9, you can look up any record, you can have the relationship assistant there, a lot of great stuff. The one thing that's been missing, which I'm glad to see in the release notes, is configuring that app, because the Outlook add-in for the Outlook app for V9 is a app module, right? But it hasn't been configurable yet. So I've wanted to change the fields on it, or what displays, or put some subgrids in there, or whatever. So that's coming. When is that coming? In October?
So, so when we looked at our Outlook integration, right? So we realized that there were three main areas with respect to Outlook integration, which is Outlook client, server-side synchronization, and app for Outlook. With app for Outlook in version 9.0, as you know, app for Outlook is an app module. So we are building on the wonderful concept that is app module. We want to make sure that App for Outlook can natively inherit all the different capabilities of unified interface as and when we make it available. But we also want App for Outlook to have its own sort of behavior for something, so that there is some flexibility, so that there are some capabilities that our users and customers want to lie down on App for Outlook or make it behave differently on App for Outlook. So that's why we are using the concept of app modules. We are enabling the changes in app module for App for Outlook, and we're making sure that we honor that in the App for Outlook in a phased manner. So there are a lot of things that may not be applicable to the Outlook scenario or may not make sense for it to be on Outlook, but we are taking it on a case-by-case basis. And one of the things that we are working on and that we are going to release very, very shortly in the next couple of weeks is the ability to filter entities that appear in App for Outlook.
Yeah, that's what something we've got requests from and saying, hey, we don't want to track all this stuff. We see a million entities. We just want to give people 5.
Yep.
And so what I understand is you're basically going to be able to remove those from the app module, and that will make them not show up in the list.
Yes.
Okay.
So we are going to honor the list of entities that you have in app module, and if you add entities to the list in app module, we are going to make sure that we surface that in the quick create menu and also in the regarding lookup.
Nice.
And of course, in regarding lookup, the entity also has to be activity enabled. So that check will still do, because it has to be it has to be valid for regarding lookup. So we honor that, and then you can add entities, remove entities, and you configure that way so that your users have access only to those entities that really make sense for them for their roles.
Okay. I like that. I want to also ask you the category-based tracking, which was recently introduced, is exciting to see because it enables delegate tracking scenarios and other things that we haven't been able to do with server-side sync. Question for you on that is, when are we going to get on V9?
It is already available on V9.
Oh, that's news.
Boom, busted.
Okay, I missed that announcement.
You did not know that?
Srihari taking you to school.
No, this shipped class is in session. This actually shipped very recently.
Okay. It shipped recently.
No, super recently, in fact.
Okay.
And we have it available on version 9.0 now.
Okay.
It's so with server-side synchronization, you have the same organization setting that you can go and enable, and if the administrators enables the org setting, then the category is created, and you can do all of those categories.
So we've had several clients try it and got some generally positive feedback. One thing, professional services and financial services are very picky about their calendars. They don't like you to change anything about it. You got assistants who manage VIP's calendars, and they use specific coloring for specific things. Right now, the category tracking creates the category and makes them all a certain color. So, and I think I've already put this in the experience site, but the biggest feedback I've got is give us the ability to specify what that color is. Because if and I don't remember if it's blue or red or whatever it is, but whatever it is, if we're already using that for another category, I look at it and I see all these other appointments that are colored that way. I like the category thing and how it makes it easier for me to see what's tracked and not tracked. So I think it's a great feature.
So it is possible today.
Oh, okay.
So there are two.
I'm learning a lot from this episode.
Wow, really going to school.
Yeah. So there are two things that you can do with the category-based tracking.
Okay.
You can. So when we create the category on Outlook, we default it to a certain color. We go with the blue, which is the Dynamics 365 brand color. But at any point of time, individual users can go and pick their own color. So, so in a single org, you can have different users that have chosen different color for that category.
Right.
And B, they can even go and change the name of the category. So,
oh, wow. Okay.
So once we create the category, we refer to the category on the back end by its ID. So we're not really, referring to its to it by its name, so that gives some sort of localization aspect as well. So whatever you want to call it, whatever it makes sense, we honor that.
I have a few people I got to call after this episode.
You got schooled, Joel.
The other thing is on-premises, because this is one thing, a lot of the people who need this are in things like financial services and some of the industries that are the last holdouts to go to the cloud. Investment banks, private equity, credit unions, things like that. They're the people that need this the most, and they're the most likely to still be on premises. So is the plan, whenever the next release of on-premises rolls out, to bring this functionality in there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we have a plan for making the version 9 Dynamics 365 available on-premise.
I forgot to ask Shilpa the date that Unified Interface is going to be available on premises.
If only she were here, you could ask her.
I like that answer.
Wait, who's that?
She's back.
Yeah. She's like Beetlejuice. You say her name too many times, she pops up.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So when we make that on-premise release, we will definitely make this feature available.
Right.
It is already available with Exchange on-premise.
Okay.
So if the Exchange instance is on-premise, then you can still use this. But for Dynamics on-prem on V9, it will be available whenever V9 will be available on-prem.
Okay. Well, that's great. Well, I think they're tearing the place apart here, so I think we need to wrap it up.
So, Srihari, I'll ask you the same thing I asked Shilpa. If folks listening to the podcast want to give you feedback, what's the best way to do that?
Yes. So it's the same answer as Shilpas. So they would have to go to experience.dynamics.com to provide any feedback, feature request ideas that they want to let us know, and we review that periodically. If they have any questions or we're as I said, we're making massive improvements in Outlook Client, in App for Outlook, more so on App for Outlook, but only fundamental improvements on Outlook Client. So if they have any questions on, hey, is this available on version 9.0, is this available on version 8.2, we have a page on our documentation that's called like What's New with App for Outlook, and we keep that updated regularly with every release that we make, so they can go and check that information out. But if there are any requests, ideas that they want to submit to us, experience.dynamics.com is the best place to do.
And I figured that was going to be the right route to go. But you can see, if you look in the release notes guide, there's highlighted where features were brought in from ideas. They were, customer submitted or idea submitted. So that communication really does get through and is important. So
and we are going to surface more of those. So when we start with other release notes and any communication, and even in conferences in the future, things that we bring out, we will try and surface as much ideas that we are getting through in the product, because yes, we want to encourage that channel. We want everybody to go there, right, because we are not getting enough votes.
Right.
We are doing such a regular planning cycle, but we are not able to use that tool the way we want to.
And I think it's the perception that, do you really listen? And it's great that you're surfacing that in the release.
We are. Please listen to us.
So everyone, get out there and vote.
That's
Search
right.
for Sean Tabor and vote for everyone he submitted.
No, that's only a couple. So I got to get better on that.
Yeah, you
All
need
right.
to be more regular.
Yes, I do. Yes,
Well,
I do.
Shilpa, Srihari, thank you very much. We really appreciate you coming on and helping our listeners who maybe didn't get a chance to come to Business App Summit the chance to hear from you and what's coming.
Thanks so much
Thank
for
you
having
so much
us.
for having us. Yeah.
This has been CRM Audio, the Dynamics 365 podcast. Send us your feedback at voice@crm.audio. Check out our other shows at crm.audio or subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, and any place else podcasts are offered. This podcast is a production of Dynamics Podcast LLC.